think the future is networks. It's the fact that kind of everyone is connected to everyone else.
Hi, welcome to iJump, social media podcast, your social media podcast. I'm Marie and it's great to see you again. Now last week we had Tony Faure from NineMSN from Australia who actually shared lots of gems with us about blogging. This week we're actually going to continue his conversation with Simon and he's going to talk about the future of networking and the future of basically where the web is heading. So hope you like it and we'll see you back very soon. Bye.
So I think there are lots of ways in which the consumer generated content and the professionally generated content are going to sit alongside each other and are going to complement each other rather than this kind of idea people had of one or the other.
Right, yeah, exciting. That's great. So it's almost like a media platform becomes a facilitator for people to either share or generate their own message or find out what else is going on.
That's really well put. I think the future is sharing. Mm-hmm. So, and I think the future is networks. Mm-hmm. So kind of at a very high level, people talk about social networks, and actually the point is the network. Mm-hmm. It's the fact that kind of everyone is connected to everyone else, right, and that all of us begin to expect as consumers that the experience we're getting acknowledges the fact that we're there and that we are participating.
Right. Yeah.
And so we'll find, we'll find little. Where you strike a consumer nerve, it's extraordinary the amount of feedback you can get and how fast you can get it. And that's again an example of, we ran a piece with Andrew Johns, who's a footballer, who had a drug problem, came out and talked about it. 3 hours in Australia, we had 4,500 responses to that particular issue, and people were debating it with each other. So I think the kind of coming together of all of the different forms of content in one place, which is the kind of big mashup idea, that's where I think the web's heading.
Excellent, great stuff. How does advertising fit into all this? How is it possible for it not to be intrusive in that kind of loving, caring, sharing atmosphere?
I think it's a great question. And I think it's a difficult one to have a definitive answer to. I think, what do we know about advertising? What we know is that every time you ask a consumer, there are two important things. The first thing is they will take free with advertising over paid any day. So generally, people don't hate advertising that much. And secondly, the advertising they like, they always say it's either relevant or it's entertaining.
Right.
Yeah, and they're kind of the things that are going to work for them. So I think the challenge for marketers is to think properly about the environments that they're in and figure out how do you deliver your advertising in that context. So a good example of that is we represent ads for Facebook, and Facebook at this point looks like, because the consumer is so involved in the medium, it looks like if you're trying to interrupt them in that medium or force them to go somewhere else, they're not going to be really excited about it. As a way of delivering a brand message, it's fantastic because you're incredibly immersed in this kind of experience. And as I can brand around that or advertise around that, I really can cut through. So I think for marketers, again, good news, bad news, right? The good news is lots of different ways to insert yourself in the life of a consumer. The bad news is you're going to have to think about it, and you're going to have to think about what's going to work. And I think there are good examples of people who've kind of taken a product and immersed it in the experience the consumer has, and that starts to work for them. There are equally many examples where that doesn't work.
Right.
Another example of that would be video, where I think we're finding if you're going to run video ads around video content, the 30-second TVC, which is the staple of the television industry, is too long, and doesn't work. But shorter forms of the advertising, whether that's kind of 7-second sponsorships or 15-second pre-rolls, do seem to work.
Sure.
So again, we've all got to learn, given this new environment we're in, what is it that's going to work and what is it that won't.
It's finding the people who are willing to experiment, I guess.
Yeah.
Are they hard to find? Is everyone waiting for somebody else to be the first?
Yeah, well put.
Yeah.
I've often said that advertisers, particularly outside the US, advertisers are all extremely keen to experiment, providing someone else has already proved it works. So you're kind of, and I think that's the issue. I think it's particularly the issue when you move outside of the market where the brand is owned.
Right.
So you actually find, in very many cases, the people most willing to experiment are the native brands,
Right.
and almost where you have global brands that are kind of executing a global strategy in the local market. The willingness there to experiment seems to be a lot worse.
Great stuff. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Tell us a bit about what's available on MSN in New Zealand.
How much do you want to know? No, I mean, MSN, we're a year in, and we think we've now got to the point where we really have a portal, a kind of first stop for people when they come on the web that is able to cater to most people's tastes. We've got some great content, some great partners around news and entertainment, and we're driven very heavily by the really strong Hotmail and Messenger products. About 1 million Hotmail users in New Zealand.
That's a lot of people in New
600,
Zealand.
yeah, 660,000 Messenger users, and yeah, Messenger I always say is the original social networking product. People get very excited by the MySpaces and the Facebooks and so on, but in most cases Messenger is used by significantly more people, and they spend 2 or 3 times as long on it per month as they do on those core products. So the kind of base of the business is the very, very strong Hotmail Messenger products. We've added to that great content from our partnerships with APN, New Zealand Herald, with ACP in the entertainment area, and so on. And we are really growing, we think, a business that kind of becomes the place you start your day.
Great stuff. Excellent. Been talking to Tony Faure from NineMSN. Thanks very much for being on the show today.
Pleasure, thanks for having me.
Now that was really interesting comments from Tony. So this week we're going to do something slightly different, and I'm going to actually just turn the camera around and talk to Simon and really get his thoughts on his version of networking, online or offline. How do you network online?
How do I network online? Well, first of all, I like how you've tied this to Tony's story. We were talking kind of big picture, advertising, media, how does that then connect to networking? And so yeah, the news comes from the network, and the news is what people usually advertise around. So sorry, that's just me pulling the threads from the interview.
Right.
Networking, how do I network? I network everywhere I can, basically. It's taken a long time, but it's now to the level where I've got like a lot of people in LinkedIn, on Twitter especially, and on Facebook and other social networks. And yeah, it's all good.
Mm-hmm. What do you use the most out of all those social
Probably
networks?
Twitter.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I was to follow you on Twitter, why would I follow you and how?
Oh, because I'm interesting and dashingly handsome.
Really? Very modest.
Yeah. And how? How is because you go to twitter.com, you set up an account, and then you go to twitter.com/audaciousgloop, which is my name, and press the follow button. It's as simple as that. And then on your Twitter page, you will see my Twitter updates.
Okay. And so what will I learn from you? Would I learn what you had for dinner last night, or
Possibly.
is your cat sort of misbehaving, or
Yes.
would I?
You'll probably learn some interesting things about business, and you'll probably get a few things that will make you smile and make your life happier.
Okay. But on the business side of things, I mean,
Definitely.
what experiences or some good stuff that's come out of Twitter?
Well, the interesting thing is the people who are on Twitter are usually also on other networks like LinkedIn or Facebook, or they have their own blogs. But all of those other things, you're kind of making a commitment when you decide to subscribe to a blog or connect to somebody on LinkedIn or Facebook. But with Twitter, you just get little glimpses of that person's life, which includes the way that they think, which includes the way that they do business, which includes their attitudes to life. And so it's a really good, because we do business with people. And so you want to know, who is this person, what are they like? That's an important part that everyone, even the most non-online person, knows. You want to know, is that person trustworthy? And so Twitter is a really good way to find that out in a hurry without having to travel maybe overseas to meet this person.
Right. Okay. So where can I start if I was wanting to start to get my own brand, my own personal brand, or maybe my company online?
Yep. Well, you could start. You could start with. You don't actually need to have your own website for this. You could start a blog at blogger.com and start connecting to other bloggers. linking to them. That's sort of the slow way. Or you could start with Twitter, which is the short and fast way. You could also get on LinkedIn and Facebook. And if you're on either of those and you don't know many people, you don't know where to start, well, we'd encourage you to add us. So me, Simon Young, and also Marie Young, we're there and open to befriending anybody who watches this podcast. So yeah, look us up and add us. And also, like I say, we're both on Twitter as well.
Excellent. Okay, last thoughts before we...
Well, last thoughts. I think that you need to join our Facebook group, which is called Social Media R, with an R on the end. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why it's got an R on the end, but I do know why you should join. It is because we share some really great information. We promote events that we're involved in, and we also hope to have quite a lot of discussion amongst a whole group of people, especially in New Zealand, who are involved in social media in some way.
Excellent. Okay. And who's our guest for next week?
Well, our guest next week is a strategist at advertising agency Saatchi & Saatchi, and his name is Murray Street.
Wonderful. All right. Okay, so thanks for your thoughts.
Thank you. See you then.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Maybe try that again. Businesses don't do businesses with... Oh, never mind.